Well, in this episode, we finally see a couple of the groups come together, and to tell you the truth, after last week's, we really just needed a win. I felt like we needed a win. The Walking Dead, Season 4, Episode 15, Us. Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Dead Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, and I'm here to bring you another review on the awesome and action-packed thriller-minute tale of The Walking Dead. Our last episode, of course, saw us with really one of the most powerful, but yet one of the most disturbing episodes of probably the series, definitely of the season, and it was very isolated. It was Carol, Tyrese, and the three kids, Judith, and of course Mika and Lizzie, who are now dead. But anyway, this episode winds up doing what I really hoped that they would do to begin with in this second half of the season. I believe that some of these self-contained episodes might have been necessary, but I also believe that they could have been mixed up a little bit differently to show us several groups at once. And really, ultimately, that's what they did in this episode. We had not seen Rick, Michonne, and Carl for damn near a month, and I think just because they realized that, they threw them in this 1 2 to 3 minute throwaway scene where, of course, they're on their way to Terminus, having escaped that house with the crazy people that we now know, the crazy Marlboro men / Sons of Anarchy that are now hanging out with Daryl, and they're headed on their way to Terminus. We see a little bit of just kind of, I guess, character building and development between Michonne and Carl. They're becoming best buds now, and Michonne, who is this dark, brooding, sword-wielding character for the last 2 seasons, is now laughing and happy and sharing candy bars with Carl and eating crazy cheese and dreaming of pudding or whatever they do. So, nonetheless, it's a big change for her. But they are on their way, of course, to Terminus. The cool thing about this episode is we now see everybody starting to come together and that everybody is going to converge on Terminus, we hope, right around the same time. That's what we think. Now, the episode, though, that was the only scene that we saw Rick, Michonne, and Carl in, which I was a little bit upset about, but it's okay because we did wind up seeing, Glenn's group, which was kind of cool. And we also wound up seeing the group that Daryl is with now, with the Marlboro men. So I'll go into them first because I think that's the least interesting of the 2 stories that happen. And it went back and forth, of course, like it usually does throughout the whole, throughout this whole thing. Now, first of all, Daryl is in way over his head with these guys. They're a bunch of weirdos. They look like just sort of a bunch of, again, just sort of these goofy Marlboro men, just kind of hanging out in the wild. And Daryl winds up almost immediately getting into it and almost winds up killing this guy, Len, who's giving him shit. And they have this really weird, archaic, barbaric type system of, instead of going and saying survival of the fittest, because they're all a bunch of guys that think they're a bunch of big swinging dicks, instead of going and saying, hey, we'll just always fight each other over who's got the biggest dick type of deal and kill each other off, we have this system called claimed, where basically if you want something, you want to sleep in an area where you guys come into, you say claimed. If you want something that you see on the ground, you say claimed. And I guess it's an okay system, when you're dealing with a bunch of grown children, which is what these people look like. So this is the least interesting group of people that I've seen, and it seems like they're a bunch of just sort of idiots, just to be a bunch of idiots. The one thing that comes out good of the good that comes out of this whole thing with the group is, number one, this guy Len, who's giving shit to Daryl. He's got it out for Daryl no matter what, and winds up trying to actually, after there's this confrontation about them claiming a rabbit that Daryl shot, but this other guy claimed it and everything else. This guy Len, he winds up, when they go and him and the Marlboro men go and hole up in this like warehouse type deal. Actually it looks like an old like maybe car shop or something, a mechanic shop. And this guy goes and starts some shit saying that Daryl tried to steal his half of the rabbit back, And the boss, that guy Joe, who's actually probably the coolest, most interesting looking and sounding one of them, he winds up finding out that Len was actually lying. He saw him go and steal or take the rabbit and go and plant it in Daryl's bag. And so he goes and knocks him on the ground, and then everybody else just starts beating the shit out of this guy. So we wind up finding out that these guys, even though they're these crazy Sons of Anarchy, Marlboro men types that are lawless and everything else, that they do have some rules. And one of the rules is that you shouldn't lie, or that you can't lie, that you claim things, and that you follow these rules. And if you don't, you get the shit beat out of you. And then the next morning when Daryl wakes up and they go on their merry way, this guy's laying dead outside the place. So definitely something where you don't want to repeatedly break the rules or cross anybody, or you're just not going to be part of the group. The main thing to come of this whole scenes back and forth with them is exactly what I said a few weeks ago when they were introduced. And the only thing that bothers me is the slow build up of it, because a few weeks ago when they met Daryl on the train tracks at the end of that Beth episode, episode 12 or 13, I believe it was, I said right away when I saw the guy that had gotten choked out and had seen Rick under the bed that they were looking for Rick. And we get confirmation as Daryl winds up talking to this guy Joe and finding out, asking, where are we going? He winds up finding out that they're actually on the trail of Rick and Michonne and Carl. The guy, Joe explains about how they were holed up in this house and there was this guy hiding under the bed. He wound up killing one of their own, choking him out. Then he turned on them and attacked them. We presume maybe even bit one of them. Maybe they lost a guy or two other than that one. And so they're out for blood. Plain and simple. Guys like this, and I know there were some people that told me in the comments and even some of the live streams that I do on Zorro Fanboys channel, it's, oh no, they couldn't be. These guys they're just morons just walking around. No, they are just morons walking around. That's true. But those type of people hold grudges, and they absolutely are going to hunt down and look for. There's nothing else to do. It's the apocalypse. These guys aren't running around trying to make friends. They're not trying to find a good sanctuary. They're not looking for a cure. These guys are looking around looking to harm, beat, rape, steal, pillage, whatever they can do. They're modern day fucked up pirates. And this guy Joe even goes and says to Daryl, that the world is coming together now. Daryl says the world's falling apart, and he's like, no, actually, it seems like it's coming together. People like us, we're always living on the edge, and we're kind of always just living, and just surviving, right? But now it's more of like a dog-eat-dog type of world, as opposed to having the laws of man that we had to follow. Now we can just go around and kill people indiscriminately, and it's fucking cool. So, as I said, a very uninteresting group as far as I'm concerned. There doesn't seem to be a lot to them, and the main motive for them coming after Rick and Michonne and Carl, of course, they're tracking them down the train tracks and heading towards Sanctuary, is of course revenge. So we know that in the season finale, probably, at least this is my prediction, is that that's going to culminate. Rick is going to they're going to wind up coming upon Rick and his group, and once Daryl figures out what's going on, Daryl has no loyalty to these frickin' these butt monkeys. He's going to wind up going and tearing them apart, and I think there's going to be some mass bloodshed because of it. And that's just my 2 cents on the whole thing. Now, we didn't see Tyrese and his group the entire episode, but we know, of course, after the tragic episode of The Grove, we know that they're headed now, him and Carl and Judith, towards this terminus. Now, we haven't seen Beth either since she got captured. A lot of people were saying that it was this guy Gabriel. Then they were saying that this Gabriel was recast as this character Gareth. Nonetheless, so that's all going to tie into the other half of the episode, which I'm going to talk about now. The thing that I thought was interesting about this episode is seeing Glenn and his group. We saw Glenn and Abraham, Rosita, Eugene, the man with the mullet. And Eugene is, he's one of those guys, he's kind of like that nerdy, socially awkward scientist type guy, and he's sitting there and he's hitting on Tara or whatever, who they let us know several times throughout the episode is a lesbian. And we've already known that for a few episodes, but as far as I'm concerned, it's just The Walking Dead trying to jump on the gay rights bandwagon in whatever way, shape, or form they can, because really her being a lesbian, her playing for the other team, it has no bearing on the story whatsoever. They throw in these little comical anecdotes. Abraham's talking with Tara and he's like, oh, I saw you looking down Rosita's shirt, at her tits, obviously, when she was giving you some food the other day. Nonetheless, this motley crew of five hapless heroes, I guess you would call it. You got Glenn, who's just focused on getting towards Terminus, right? And very early on in the episode, it's really cool, actually, towards the beginning of the episode, after you see Eugene bugging the shit out of Tara, just annoying her, just being annoying, he winds up actually seeing one of the blood, the things that were written in blood, the notes written in blood by Maggie. Glenn, go to Terminus, it's Maggie. So although it was kind of that Cinderella story, that heartfelt, like, oh boy, you needed to have something positive, I think, to bring you in, right? Because we've had so much negativity, so much loss. After the prison, it's downer after downer after downer. And really seeing Michonne, of course, come out of her her little mental coma that she was in, as far as just wanting to walk around alone and live. That was a positive moment, but that was way back in episode 9, right? Everything else has been very, very downtrodden and negative. You see Daryl and Beth start to build a bit of a relationship, and a lot of people are like, oh, and it's sick because they want to sleep with each other. No, I don't think so. I think it's like it's the end of the world, and people like Daryl, who's never had any companionship or love from anyone, has just found himself a good friend. I don't think he wants to bang her, you know? I think people look too much into that type of stuff. I think it's really just companionship and just wanting to be around somebody, to talk and to voice your thoughts and to just to have somebody there, right? But that was obviously that was ended on a downer, because just as they started to kind of come together and what have you, Beth wound up getting kidnapped, and then now, you know, Daryl basically was just, you know, beyond him, lost, and then of course, you know, came upon with the Sons of Anarchy, you know, Marlboro Men rejects. Nonetheless, though, it's been a series of down notes, and really in a show like this, or in any show, any book, any whatever, you can only have so much downtrodden, so many down notes. You know, I don't care what it is. If you keep hitting the audience with negativity, the next thing you know, people lose interest, because it's like, God, I feel depressed when I watch this show. So after last week's episode, I think you really needed something to kind of spark some life into the show and to give people a reason to kind of cheer and smile. And this episode was that reason, in the sense that we see Glenn, and even though it's kind of cliche and it's kind of, you know, I guess storybook romance type thing, he sees it and he just starts running down the tracks, right? And you see the determination of this guy. You see a little bit of camaraderie built amongst him and Abraham and all them, as there's a couple points where they're actually going to leave each other, but he winds up going and giving his riot gear to Eugene, because he's like, listen, all you want to do is protect Eugene, right? You know, so here, you takes the riot gear, we all keep walking until sundown. I gotta get to Maggie, you know? And really the thing that was neat to see is that the Glenn that I liked from the first season and maybe the first half of the second season is back, in the sense that even though he's still the goofy, hopeless romantic that's trying to get to Maggie, he's this great character again for me, and I really enjoyed just kind of seeing him and seeing the look of determination in his eyes, and basically just the, hey, listen, there's no harm done, no offense, but we're going to have to part ways over here because I got shit to do, you know? And Tara's with him just because she feels guilt over, of course, being sucked in by the governor and everything like that, and actually coming against him at the prison, and seeing, of course, the governor go and cut off Herschel's head, who he knows is, you know, the father of his wife, right? And plus, I think she's got the hots for Glenn, too, so regardless if we're playing for the other team or not, I think that she's hoping for something special to happen, too, between the two of them, maybe even Maggie as well. Who knows? It's a post-apocalypse, anything goes, you know? So they wind up coming upon this train tunnel, right? Because they're following the train tracks to Terminus. And Glenn goes in, and it's dark in there, and they can hear zombies in there and everything else. And Abraham's like, this is where we're going to have to part ways. We're going to have to go up and around and find a vehicle. Sorry, man, we cannot go in there. It's going to be too much, you know, it's too much, right? So they part ways, and Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene wind up going off their merry way. And Tara, who had actually twisted her ankle, looked like earlier her knee or something, who had fallen down earlier, decides to go with Glenn. They've got a flashlight, very low ammunition, and they wind up coming upon a part in this tunnel, in this train tunnel, where there was a cave-in, there was a collapse. So there's many zombies that are like caught in the rocks and caught in these little nooks and crannies and everything. And as he goes in, and I'm looking at this, I'm like, there's no way anybody could have came through here. Maggie probably came through there earlier before the collapse, because that Tara says it looks like the collapse was fresh, or somebody says it looked like it happened within the last day. So Glenn, of course, instead of going out and trying to go around and find his way around this tunnel, not knowing how long it is, not knowing the landscape, he's got to find his wife, man. And I really like those horse blinders he's got on, because although it scared the shit out of me, I was like, I wouldn't go headlong into that. And then I thought about it, and I'm like, yeah, if it was for my wife or my kids, yeah, I would, you know? So you know, it's a no-brainer at that point. So he stabs a couple of the pertinent zombies that are kind of about to grab at them as they walk by. And as they climb up over the top of this thing and see the other side of the cave-in where everything is, there's like a small herd of zombies. There's probably 30, 40, 50 of them. I don't know, man. Enough to definitely get you going. So what they do is they wind up kind of luring them over, it looks like, to the one side, and then they're going to go and they're going to kind of sneak down the other side of this tunnel and hopefully just kind of run past them. I think that was their whole hope, you know, maybe distract them and get past them. As they're going down, Tara winds up getting her leg caught, right? And now she's caught, and as she's getting caught, there's more sounds being made because more stuff is falling down in this little landslide type deal. The whole time this is happening, Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita come upon, they find a minivan, right? They find themselves a little grocery, get a little minivan. And Eugene is hell-bent on giving directions and has Abraham lay down in the back, and Rosita's just driving, right? Well, he winds up, he's like a little genius over here, and he winds up basically tricking her into driving around and parking at the other end of where the tunnel is, because he tells her to stop on these tracks and everything. And it was kind of neat, because then Abraham gets up, and he's like, what the hell's going on, and he bitches at Rosita for listening and everything else. And these guys are on their way to Washington, D.C. from Houston, so they're only 55% of the way through their journey, Eugene says. And basically, I think he has the hots for Tara, and I think he just wants to be around other people, safety in numbers. They talk about how at one point they actually lost 8 or 9 people on the way there. So they need people, strength in numbers, right? So he went over, and plus I think he liked Glen's determination too. So they're on the other side of the tunnel, and all of a sudden Abraham's like, well, would you look at that? And then it cuts away, and you're like, well, what the hell? What did they see? Did they see Glen in them? Then it goes back in, and we see Glen and Tara, and she's still caught. And now they've drawn the attention of some of these zombies, and they're starting to come around. And it's a thin area that they start coming through, but they do start coming through. And she's like, just leave me, dude. Just leave me, right? And Glen's like, hell no, I ain't going to leave you, He got to have his backup woman. So Glen goes and starts shooting these things with what few bullets he has. And right as it's at a point where ultimately, he says that he never lost hope and everything else, but as there's a bunch of them flooding around the corner, and I'm like, they're done. There's no way they can get us. They're done, right? All of a sudden, just automatic machine gun fire and some lights come on from like a vehicle or something that looks like down this tunnel, and these things just start getting mowed down in crazy action movie fashion, right? Like an Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone movie from the 80s, or early 90s. That's what it's like, and these things are just getting blown away. And you can just see the figures, the outline of the figures, and you're thinking, oh, Abraham, Eugene, and Rosita, right? You're coming in to save the day. Well, there's more than 3 figures, and you're like, what the hell? And you can see, and I'm going to watch this with my wife and with my son, and my wife's like, yeah, but there's more than 3, As the kind of smoke clears, so to speak, they gun down all these zombies. And you can see the headlights from the car is creating just a shadow, so you can only see the shadows. They zoom in on the people, and who is it? But it's Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene, but who they met at the tunnel, they wound up meeting up with, they wound up running into Maggie and Bob and Sasha. So finally, after 6 episodes or 7 episodes or whatever it's been since the break, and I understand that the whole idea of the prison going down was they were all supposed to be desolate and not know if they were alive or dead or anything else, but we needed a win, people. We needed a win, and we got a win. They're finally back together, and these groups have now merged together, so now they actually have a little more safety in numbers. There's 8 of them. There's Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene. There's, of course, Bob, Sasha. There is, of course, Maggie and Glen now, and Tara, right? So I thought it was really nice. I thought it was really heartfelt. There was this great moment where that picture, that Polaroid that Glen took of Maggie when she was sleeping, I think at the beginning of the season or maybe in the last season, he goes and he pulls it out because that's all he had to remember her, and she takes it and goes to burn it, and he's like, what the hell? It's the only picture I have of you, because, women love it when you take pictures of them when they're sleeping. It's creepy as shit. But anyway, she's like, you're not going to need that anymore, So I think that's her commitment to, I'm going to be with you or around you until the day one of us or both of us die, And it was very heartfelt. And like I said, it was kind of corny and cliche, but at the same time, boy, I tell you, I needed a win. I don't know about you, but I needed a win. That's what it felt like, a win to me. So the episode, though, winds up ending up, and this was the real kind of the kicker for me, man, to lead us into the season finale. So I'd give you all the ideas and predictions I have, and I want to hear what yours are as well. They wind up, of course, now they're a strength in numbers, bigger group, and they decide that instead of going on, Abraham, Rosita, and Eugene, they're going to actually go and try to get to this sanctuary, this terminus, right at the end of the line. That's probably less than a day away. Maybe they can resupply there. Maybe they can even pick up some more people, this and that. So they go, and at the end of the episode, they show up to this terminus, right? And it says real big in letters on a terminus, and it's this huge building, and there's fences, and you get inside, and then it goes in between these other buildings, and it looks like this walled-off kind of fortified section, right? But there's nobody there, and I'm thinking, oh my God, has it been overrun? Has it been taken down? The whole time this has been going on, though, I kind of had that feeling of it's too good to be true. And I haven't read this far ahead in the comic books, but many people have said, well, there's these hunters, and there are these cannibals, and that this is some kind of trap, and this and that. But probably they're going to tone things down like they did with the governor. And the governor was done better in the TV show as far as I'm concerned, because in the comic he was just this brutal, evil person, and you never really knew why, Whereas in the TV show there was like a reasoning behind it, and there was kind of a mental breakdown that he had, So with these cannibals just running around hunting people because it's easier to hunt people for meat than to actually find food and stuff like that, seems kind of silly to me. And how are you going to put that on TV, you know what I mean? So Anyway, they show up, though. They walk in, and there's this woman standing there, right? And looks like she's cooking some meat or something on the grill, and they got, plants and stuff in the background. Looks like this is a nice little area, and she's like, oh, welcome to Sanctuary, And kind of like, let's get you some food and get you all cleaned up, and this ain't, you look like you've been on the road for a long time, and they're like, oh, we have. This woman introduces herself as Mary, and I don't get too much into the biblical stuff over here, but I think that Mary, of course, being a very biblical name, Joseph and Mary and that sort of thing, I believe that this place, this sanctuary, we're going to find out that this place is actually where Beth was taken. That's what my predictions are, is that it was where Beth was taken, and that these hunters or whatever that were in the comic books are actually... it's kind of a mixture between like those cannibals and these people that think that they're kind of doing God's work, right? And I really think it's going to be a type of thing where they're going to go and bring people in and food and warmth and shelter and beds and everything else, and then as they go and separate them up, be able to kind of lock them out in individual rooms, and then they're going to have some kind of creepy ass basement where they go and they kill people and freaking hack them up, and they're going to find out that the meat that they were eating was actually some people, So that's what I think is going to culminate in the finale. I think that ultimately you're going to have... So we don't know if any other groups are there yet. We assume the way they show it that this is the first group to get there. But for all we know, Tyrese and company are already there, and they're maybe being held hostage. I don't know. Maybe they're being held captive. Nonetheless, though, I think Tyrese and the group get there, and they wind up obviously getting captured. And then it looks like the shit's going to go down. We got Rick and Michonne and company are going to get there, but of course Daryl and the Marlboro men are on their trail. So we know all that's going to come to a head. And it really just excites me to see. And then, of course, they're not just going to leave us hanging without showing Beth at least, all the way back from when she got kidnapped in episode 12. So I think that's where the tie-in comes in. This Gabriel or Gareth, I think, is with this woman, Mary. And I think he actually goes around and maybe lures people in, and then winds up going and being able to capture people and bring them in for food, as well as, of course, all the signs they put up to bring people here to Terminus to Sanctuary. I could be wrong. Maybe it is some kind of good community, but I don't feel like they're going to give us that in the season finale, that it's going to be like, oh, this is a great community, we're just chilling. Maybe it is, though, and maybe these Marlboro men that wind up being with Daryl, maybe they come upon the place and then they start attacking it. I don't know, that could be too, but ultimately my episode question, though, for you brothers and sisters, is what did you think, though? Because that's how the episode wraps up, and I'm looking forward to next week's season finale. But ultimately, brothers and sisters, what did you think of Maggie and of course Glenn coming back together? I didn't really think it was going to happen in this episode, but because he kind of just got on the trail of and everything else. But I do think that it was great. I felt like in my heart, I felt like we got a win. I feel a little more positive now after last week's episode. God, man, I just wanted to take a long walk off a short beer. I mean, that was definitely a... you want to slit your wrist type episode after what happened to the two girls, and you're just like, wow, this is a twisted reality they're living in, I don't know if I can go on and watch this. But let me know what your answer to that question is. Did you think it was too storybook and cliche, or did you like the fact that, we got a win and that Maggie and Glenn actually were able to find each other amongst all this craziness, right? Let me know what your answer is in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We will look forward to catching all of you in the season finale next week. Next walk? I was going to say next one. I was going to say next week. Just forget about it. We'll just see you. We're out. So if you like this drawing and more like it, remember to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and my other channel.